Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases.
Hello, everyone. Mrs. Steve is back. It's been a month now, and we were having fun trying to get our show back on track. And but anyway, I want to welcome everyone for being here. And if you're new to the channel, thank you. And always be mindful in chat that respect the families, mods, and each other. And if there's other additional individuals, we don't name names or don't initials or any of that. So be respectful of that and enjoy your time in chat. And we appreciate y'all being here tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Kohberger and some of his travels, pre and post crime, and some of the timelines of that, and see what the significance of that, and is that something that law enforcement will look at. And it's something I most certainly decided to look at, especially since Kohberger said to like to drive and travel. And I drive and travel quite a bit myself. And so I have a viewpoint of that I think that would be a little bit interesting that Mrs. Steve found as we discussed it. So anyway, with that being said, we'll get started here. Go ahead and pull it up. All right. If you have any information on this case of Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, and Zana, absolutely make sure law enforcement has it as the trial moves forward against Kohberger, for the fact that we need to have justice for these victims and their families. And so make sure if you have any information, move it forward. We appreciate it. There's a lot of evidence that witnesses have seen and have brought forth, and we have DNA, we have knife purchases, we have issues about alibis, the time frame, his vehicle, the cameras, the cell data, the Wi-Fi connections. All these things point towards why the search warrants and the probable cause exists, of why law enforcement looked at him, pursued him, and ultimately have arrested him and charged him in the homicides of these victims. And so anyway, I was looking at some of the cell phone data and his travels. And of course, he traveled to during the crime. Of course, certain things happened with his phone, which we'll be covering, about going offline, going off the air, and him not no one knowing where he was at, and then by coincidence or not, a vehicle matching his is seen near the crime scene. And of course, regardless of all the probable cause that exists for his arrest, he is, as they always say, you're innocent until proven guilty, and that's the case with him. But there's a lot of things, and everybody has their biases and opinions of his innocence and guilt, and what does the probable cause mean, and do they have the right individual? And each of you, you're welcome to debate the issue. Send me whatever, because I get a lot of interesting emails and comments about innocent and guilt, and everyone should have their perspective and their opinions. And of course, I have my opinion, and but everyone has basis and foundation for what those opinions are, and we should respect and be able to debate those freely. But looking at this, and then looking at some of the distances that between Pullman, Washington, and Moscow, Idaho, and I looked up several different traffic patterns, different times, and that to drive even from his address where Kohberger lived at the time to the address of where the crime scene was, there's some very specific, it's not that far. You're only looking like 9 miles plus, give or take. Just depends which way which route you take and the quickest. But all of them run somewhere around 20 to 22 minutes drive time. And this is one way for the fact that, they're not able to do interstate speeds. And so when you look at that timeline that we are driving 1.5 miles in 20 minutes. So, you're only averaging basically around what, 30, around 30 miles an hour. And so the speed limits, the little side streets and the pedestrian traffic and anything that could do that would extend and not allow you to hit those interstate speeds, of course, takes off time. And there's an interesting detail of that when we look at it of his drive time that's noted by his cell data of those phone pings of where he pinged at specific times and what happened during that night. That is extremely interesting. So we have to remember that the 9.5 miles and typically around a 20-minute drive period, those numbers are going to be extremely important when we get to a point that I want to make everyone aware of. The search warrant for Kohberger's residence in Washington State said from that at least 12 occasions prior to the date of the homicide that Kohberger had his phone had utilized and hit resources that provide coverage to the area of 1122 King Road. And that all of these occasions, except for one, occurred in the late evening and early morning hours of the respective days. And so typically, whenever he was in the area, it's late at night and or early morning. And so other than one time previously. And so looking at those numbers, of course, he's in the area. There's a lot of reasons that he possibly could be there, but eventually it winds up that his DNA is at the crime scene, and law enforcement, through their investigative measures, identified key points, key times, and key devices and cellular data that backs up the probable cause, which is huge just by itself. But there was other things in this one slide here. There's a lot of information on this because the morning of the homicides, Kohberger's phone goes off of the air, disabled, whatever, around 2:47 a.m. and stays off until 4:48. And so his phone is totally, no one, you can't track him by the pings and things or of a cellular device. But at 5:27, after his phone comes back on at 4:48, 5:27, his phone pings and his vehicle is seen on the by cameras on the Washington State University, of course, where he resides. And so he gets home at 5:27, or in the area of his home at 5:27. And so, at 9:21, something occurs. He leaves his residence. And once he leaves his residence at 9 o'clock, by 9:21, it starts, well, actually at 9:12, his phone starts hitting close to the area and within the area of King Road, and which is significant for the fact that, if you remember, it takes about 20 minutes to travel from his house to get there. And so just by the 20 and 21 minute variance here that we see that he has reached there, he's drove to the outermost point that he could and to get to that area. And I want you to think of this, that if you'd been up all night, that you had whatever the events of the night before, that how significant is that you get home 5:30, 6 o'clock, maybe lay down, eat or whatever, and at 9 o'clock you get up and you get in your vehicle and you drive the exact time or near to the exact time it takes an individual to drive, because you can look it up from his home address to 1122, and it's around 20 to 21 minutes typically. And so he drives there. And then what does he do? He doesn't stay around, doesn't visit, doesn't have coffee with some stranger or meet someone. He turns around, and by 9:32, he gets back, and his phone shows that he's in the area and at home, and so he goes back home. And so within this time frame, and now we have to remember that between the 9:12 and 9:21, that he may have been able, and that started showing him in the area 2 or 3 minutes early. So he may have been able to get there in 16 or 17 minutes and then drive back in 16 or 17 minutes. And that's significant that in the absolute time of pushing it, that he leaves his home, what is typically a 40-minute ride, and he goes to as far as he can go, turns around and goes back home, and hitting the cell towers. And the cell towers, and the significance of this is that if you woke up on any morning, what is the likelihood of you driving for 20 minutes or 18 minutes to the same area where your DNA is going to be found under a victim of a homicide? And that's what's so significant about this. It's not that he spent 9 minutes looking at the residence. It's not that he spent 9 minutes totally setting at any one location in Moscow. For the timeline of the cell tower data to be correct, and if the cell tower data is correct, and we are between 9 and 9:32, we only have a 32-minute time frame. This does not allow him to linger or do anything. He has to drive from point A to point B and back from point B to point A in a very specific time frame, because everyone knows that the cell phone data is absolute. If it is, the cell times, everything's on the world clocks and things. And if you want to know and synchronize everyone's time, the phone data is absolutely the way to go, because the cell tower data is critical and it's kept up to date. And so that was the point I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of, and the significance of that. And we can look at that if you drive from that address to where the apartments are on Northeast Valley Road, by this one, it shows that it's 10.9 miles. And I just looked this up a few minutes ago, and it's 21 minutes. If you go a different route, it's 25 minutes. Is there any other route that he might have been able to take that might be a little bit shorter, or was he able to get out into the countryside and do a little speeding and shave off a minute or two? But the critical time frames are, how long could he spend in the area? And it would just be almost a quick drive-by of the maximum distance, because when he gets to Moscow, it's the areas that are used in sync with the area of King Road, which is huge. And I looked at, also on this day afterwards, he travels all the way down to Clarkston, Washington, which is basically almost, it's 48 minutes, so it's not quite an hour. And so he does some other traveling later on, and or even before he gets back, and goes to and arrives back home at 5-something in the morning. He's out traveling the countryside and everything. And it's not until later that evening, around 4 or so, that he finally settled down once again. And during all these travels and looking at all these other places, of course, you can discuss what is he doing in these areas. Is there a possibility of him concealing evidence, cleaning his vehicles? Absolutely. That's all possible. But regardless of what's possible, of those possibilities, the significant part is that when he left his home at 9 o'clock, he drove to a specific area where his DNA would be found under a victim. And then he left that area and went back home. And So will this be something that law enforcement would look at? I absolutely believe so. It's something I would focus on, and that we would argue amongst ourselves of what the significance of that is, and why would someone get up on a random day, drive that distance, and return home. And so I wanted to look at that. And then, of course, on Reddit, you can go up and look, and the alleged travels on day of the Moscow homicides, and it has some pretty good timelines. There are other creators out there that have some great timelines on this, and but absolutely look at all of them. You can punch in those dates, but this one slide here, it tells you a lot of information of the significance of that and what are the odds of that occurring. Well, you think there are big odds that that would occur? Same reply I had earlier. Yeah. Same words, actually. Mm-hmm. Yep, all righty. But I want to appreciate everybody being here. And like I said, I wanted to make this point that it is something that stands out to me. And it stands out to everyone that, everybody gets up sometimes and they have that they remember something or they want to go check on something. And you always drive to that, if you got to go to the store to get whatever, a drink or food, you drive there, take care of business, and drive straight back home. Or typically that's what occurs, that everyone has a mission. Human nature is that we make most value of our time. And any time that we use or any time that we do anything, we try to make the most use of all that valuable time. And I think he did that morning. I think he got up that morning and or he left his house at 9 o'clock. And was he watching the news? Was he doing research? Law enforcement will have some of that information. We don't know. It hasn't been revealed yet. But I think there was some concern of him and maybe some doubt. He may even realize that, hey, where is my knife sheath? What happened to it? And so he may have been contemplating going back, but he did drive back and into the area, and so we'll have to see what that means. All right, got any questions?
I'm sure we do. We have Kristen behind the crime door in
Hello, Kristen.
Chat.
Good to see you.
And I'm trying to get my mojo back, so let's see here. All right.
Yeah, we've been off the. I've been traveling. I went about, I don't know, somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 miles last week. And during that time, I was thinking a lot about traveling. And once again, during all those travels, it's mission oriented. When I get in the car, I drive to a specific, I make the most use of my time on the road. And that's just, like I said, it's something that's human nature.
All right. And we got Single Mom True Crime.
Member for 8 months. Love it here. Love Mr. and Mrs. Steve. Thank you. Appreciate your support.
So Thank
it means
you
a lot
so
to
much.
us.
Bama Sin. We're going
gifted 5 True Crime Web memberships. Thank you, Bama.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
that. And we've got Gail Hurd.
Gifted 1 True Crime Web membership. Thank you, Gail. Appreciate it.
You know what I forgot?
What? You ain't been doing the blue light?
My blue light. I did miss my light. Oh my goodness. Let's just keep going with the blue light. All right, let's see here. Now we got a couple of questions.
Sure.
We've got Lori Thompson. So why did his phone ping the Moscow Tower on the 14th, but investigators don't believe his phone was in? I don't think that's Moscow. What is it?
Moscow. I think it's pronounced Moscow.
Moscow, as per PCA.
Well, law enforcement would have more data on that if that's the case, and they would have a better understanding. And was it that there was other tower data indicating that while it may have pinged off something, that there was other towers and he could have been in certain locations? I don't know. And I don't have all the data that they have. And so if there's any discrepancies, of course, the defense is going to look at that and make whatever they can of it. And there's always arguments and opinions about all the little details. And each little part of it, it means something. And what does it mean? That's how come the defense and the prosecution will get up there, and each of them will give their side. And whatever the jury, whichever way that the jury is convinced, that ultimately will decide the case.
All right. And we have Shane Turner. I have a good question about BK and his dad. When they were pulled over in Indiana, why would they say they were fleeing the shooting that happened 8 hours earlier and they were hundreds of miles away?
I'm sure that him and his father were discussing that and were made aware of it, and it was just a thing of discussion to talk. And were they filling out the and of course, if Kohberger is absolutely the one that is responsible for these homicides, he absolutely is going to be trying to separate himself from anything else and try to get the officer mind off on something else, or trying to fill out the officer of what was going on. And people, when you talk to individuals and you do interviews, they're going to give you that. You may ask them a question, and they're going to redirect and try to get you focused on their topic. They don't want to talk about the topic you want to talk about. They want to talk about the topic that gets and separates them from anything that you might think they're responsible for. And I've been in there investigating and doing an interview and be talking about whatever the case topic is a death investigation, or is it burglaries or otherwise, and they don't want to have nothing to do with that. They'll go off on other individuals, other suspects, events in their lives, things that are happening in the mainstream media, and it's just something common that everyone deflects and misdirects all the time.
All right, you got to give me 1 second.
Okay.
All right. And let's see, they've changed up my little star things. That's what happens when
You're gone for a month.
You're gone a month. They mess with me. They're doing it just to get me off. Okay. So, Cynthia Wackadoodle.
Good to see Mrs. Steve back in the saddle. Absolutely.
12 months member.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
Appreciate that.
All right. And Miss Miranda, I hope things are going good for her. I know she's had some health issues. Let's see here. At True Crime Web, I've heard rumors BK stopped at a pharmacy-style store after the murders. Is there actual proof of that in any of the court documents?
He did. He went down to Clarkston, and there's some other, and are there other places he may have not stopped? Probably so. But we know that he stopped in down in Clarkston, I think is the name of the community, that is almost an hour away. And what was he doing down there? What did he purchase? I'm sure law enforcement knows exactly what he purchased, and they have those items. And but the pharmacy style store, I can understand that you might think that. What are we getting? Are we going to be getting certain things possibly as cleaning products, or as some type of medical aid in case he hurt or harmed himself, possibly by a cut or something? And law enforcement would look at that. Or is he picking up some more gloves so that as he cleans and whatever measures he takes post-crime, how would that aid him in eliminating DNA or something of that nature? For the fact that the defense is quite proud, and understandably, that there's no DNA from the crime scene within his vehicle. Doesn't mean it didn't exist, but that it was none located. And that's huge. And that's a good argument for the defense of how could such a crime occur and not DNA be found in that vehicle. And I'll have to give them to that. That is a valid point. It's something I wouldn't expect.
Okay, and I lost my sheet of paper. Here it is. All right, I think I got my mojo back now.
I'm glad.
Maybe.
She's been off for a month now.
Yeah. All right, I feel like I'm going back to day one. All right, let's see here. And this here is just a couple little comments.
Sure.
From Shane Turner. I drove from his apartment to the King house. It took less than 15 minutes.
And
that's
absolutely. And this is a great point, guys, because in this, let's see here. Where is it? It's the here at 9:32. That he leaves at 9, and he drove to an area, and as Shane here says, it took less than 15 minutes. So if he drove, let's go 14 minutes. That so we're at 28 minutes, and so Kohberger leaves his apartment. Now the search engine and the app I use to show from his residence to the other, I think said 20 or 21. And all that would depend on traffic at any specific time. We have Shane here who says that on the day that he drove it, he was able to do it in less than 15 minutes. So at 14 minutes, at 28 minutes, that shows and that validates that he was able to do this, that he could leave his house, go to the furthest point, and turn around and go back in the 32 minutes. And once again, it shows that we have at the outermost reaches of this drive time that you're only able to spend hardly any time doing anything. You're not going over there to see someone in the neighborhood for a minute and a half that hasn't stepped forward and says, oh, he came to see me. That's how come he was in the neighborhood. We have no one that has stepped forward and said that this is who that Kohberger got up that morning, drove to my house. We had a quick cup of coffee, and he went on back home. We don't have any of that as far as an alibi. All thing we have is that Kohberger likes to drive, and so he likes to drive. He drove to the area of where a homicide was, turned around, and returned home. And Shane says that you can do it in less than the 32 minutes that was allotted by the cell towers. And he was able to do it in basically 28 to 30 minutes. Thank you, Shane.
Okay. All right. And then Anna helped me out with my pronunciation. It's Moscow, rhymes with co and Kohberger. So that should help me. Moscow.
Okay.
I got it. Thank you so much. All right. And Miss Christina gifted 5 memberships.
Hello, Christina. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Absolutely means a lot to us.
All right. And from Mr. Shane, do you believe in big letters?
Homicides.
What do you believe? Oh, yeah. These homicides were done by just one person.
Everything that we've seen from what the witnesses or the witness indicates that saw one individual. Didn't see a group, saw one individual walk past her. And law enforcement indicates that there was at least one unknown shoe or a shoe pattern that they were able to collect. And so, yes, it is absolutely something that you wouldn't expect, but in a 13-minute engagement, and I've been there. I've been in some pretty violent encounters in 12 to 13 minutes against multiple offenders. And I was able to fight off multiple offenders. And so could you reverse it in that I only had 3. He did 4, but mine were all male. These was only 1 male and 3 females. But yes, I do believe it was done by one person. I think law enforcement has identified him. That's my opinion based on the probable cause.
Okay. And from Miss Kamala, do you think KB stalking one of the victims, maybe he found back route with no street cams?
I don't think that's even possible nowadays. And was he really checking? I think that that was something he never anticipated. He anticipated the cell phone data, maybe anticipated some of the devices within a vehicle, tracking abilities, don't know. But the random phones, ring phones, and everything that's out there on residentials and businesses now, I don't believe anyone could ever travel and absolutely remain hidden at any point along a crime spree or from point A to point B. I think that if we really realize how often we're seen on cameras, even in a 5-mile drive in each of our neighborhood, we would be surprised. Even within my neighborhood, there's several cameras, not all by mine, but of our neighbors. And so, and it's just something that's so common. But I don't think that in most of America now that there's a lot of areas that there isn't some type of camera, either at businesses, stores, or at even on front of most residences now.
All right. And Miss Miranda at True Crime Web, where do you think BK found out about the residents of the house? He was stalking at least one of them. Who do you think it was?
It has to be, and I agree with this part of it. I've discussed it with several people, and that if he's targeting any of one in that residence, it's going to be one of the first 2 victims. And so we have 2 of the victims in a room that's upstairs. Which one of those it could be, there's of course people that have opinions, and but yes, I would say whoever's in that top room, one of the first 2 victims.
Oh, me again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And let's see here. And Josh the Pie.
Josh, $10. During some of your highs, I was on their town. Someone mentioned that they got tickled with the way Mrs. Steve says, Josh the Posh. Happy you're back.
Josh. What?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your support.
All right. And Miss Kamala.
Do you think Kohberger was in a bunny suit while in the house? That is extremely possible. What type of dark clothing was that? Was it Tyvek? I doubt that it was much Tyvek, but there's a lot of different types of rain suits that or even some of the tactical type of materials are out there that are oversized and easily removed that would protect not only in cross contamination to him, but is very easy to remove, especially if it's oversized a little bit, and which you can shed those layers. If he is as calculating as I believe he is, that most certainly would lead to lessening the amount of cross contamination of the victim's blood, DNA profiles in his vehicle. If he shed 1 or 2 outer layers, prior to getting into his vehicle, then absolutely, regardless, is it a bunny suit or not? I do think, though, it was layers of some type of material. It was either tactical or any whatever brand of clothing that he might have chose, or a rain suit, but I believe there was layers.
All right. Now, part of this I've never heard of.
Okay.
All right. And this is going to be from Pippi Longstocking 2020. Question: how could DM allegedly see a tall man dressed in black wearing a mask walking by her room, and BF allegedly saw a naked man going out the sliding glass doors? When and how did he strip down?
Well, and that was something that was discussed. How true is it? Don't know. What was the time frame of that? I don't know. And of course you have all those opinions out there. It's not within the probable cause affidavit, although I think the defense made reference to this, or one of the private investigators for the defense, that they were going to be making certain questions about some of that. But I don't think that is the same timeline or same individual. I think it's two different occasions.
Okay, and that's all I have highlighted. So let's see here. Let's see here.
I want to thank everybody for being here. I know it's been a while but I was on the road all through the Midwest last week. Spent a lot of time in Indiana, and even went up to Chicago. And I want to appreciate and thank everyone for bearing with us while I'm on the road. But got a lot of work done last week. Got a lot of stuff. Hopefully it will have an impact, and I'll be going back possibly somewhere in January, February, weather permitting, back to Indiana.
February.
Mrs. Steve says February.
Triple Alt needs you.
Triple Alt. I got to go back and see Triple Alt.
All right. And we have Miss Gail.
Gifted 1 True Crime Web membership. Thank you, Miss Gail. Thank you. Appreciate your support.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. All right. I got some more coming in. Let's see here. Miss Miranda, when can you talk about the cases you traveled for?
That will probably be, I will make some phone calls. I also spoke with Larry in reference to the Texas with Amber Crum case, but I'll be speaking with him, and I've got to get with Carolyn, see if we can't get the report to the Dallas-Fort Worth law enforcement that she had compiled regarding the search for Amber. So that's really the only one I can talk about right now. Thank you, though.
All right, and let's see here. And from Jeff H, do you all hear a trunk slam
shut
at 4:21:01 a.m. on LL footage?
There's like I said, on the video footage, and there are certain sounds and thumps, and what are they? I'm going to wait until law enforcement identifies what they are, but yes, there are certain noises and thumps and that have been brought out, and what are they? I don't know.
All right. And let's see here. All right. And we have
Not a drama Nana. Gifted 1 True Crime Web membership. I hope I got that right.
You did. Not a drama. Love it.
Not a drama Nana. Okay. Thank you for your support. Appreciate it.
I'm not a drama either, so I love it. All right. And Miss Kamala.
Do you think the DA know which victim BK was stalking? Because I think he was absent with, and the others were collateral damage. I think, like I said, it's going to be one of the first two, I would imagine, and they would do the background and have certain information on that. But yes, I think they may absolutely know which one.
Okay, let's go see.
Thank you for your support there, Kamala.
Let's see here. And Lori, Mr. Steve, because of a media special, people believe BK purchased a knife. Do any of the SW returns validate this?
I think it's mentioned in that they did some type of. Now we may not have all the search warrants at law enforcement. We only have certain ones that are released. Are they other search warrants out there with certain providers, Amazon, say, or certain stores that there may be a search warrant return that validates one knife purchase, two knife purchases, or whatever other items, clothing, tactical gear, who knows? So what's known may or may not be. I know that there's certain receipts that are included and that they recovered certain items both in Pennsylvania and a limited amount of stuff in Washington State. But what does it final meaning of? Could there be other search warrants out there that validate a specific knife purchase? I believe so. I don't know if I have seen it, but I think there probably is.
And then Pippi Longstocking is giving you something to do when you're in Indiana. You go by the old-fashioned candy store in Elkhart.
Mrs. Steve loves old-fashioned candy stores.
I sure do. Let's see.
You're costing me money.
All right. Yeah, let's see here. All right. And from Dandy, what are the odds that the entire sheath is clear of DNA except that darn snap?
That is incredible, isn't it? That it would be handled. And how is that, But once again, like I said, there may be other DNA on that knife sheath. I don't know what techniques were used and by what technicians and what chemicals might have affected DNA if it was cleaned prior to. Could they have missed DNA in other areas of that sheath? Yes, I believe it's possible. Because, like I said, I've been there where I've had to submit the same piece of evidence multiple times in a very limited area and not recover DNA from anyone other than the victims and have to send it back multiple times. Could that be the same case with this knife sheath? Yes. But could there be other areas of that knife sheath that could be processed? It's possible that they may find DNA in the future somewhere else. Like I said, I don't know what areas and how much of it was evaluated and processed, but it is that we'll take what we got. We got the snap, so we'll go with it.
All right. And nothing half-asked. Do you have thoughts on why so much emphasis was placed on financials? In other words, bank accounts.
Of course, well, I mean, law enforcement is going to do a profile and do a financial background on Kohberger's travels, not only for this, but on purchases for this, but also to eliminate possibility other potential crimes he may have been involved in. even homicides and past victims, and because financials in this day and age, they, you can look at my financials and tell everywhere I went in the last 6 days through all the states where I was at, the where I purchased gas, um, what hotels I stayed at, and and you know, and that's true for all of us mostly now. Very few people cash only, but even if you're cash only, um, you know, when did he take deposits? How much cash did he normally keep on his person? And how often did he come back and get cash? Not saying he did, but when that does occur, um, they make note of that also. Um, you know, not a lot of people deal with cash anymore, but some people do.
All right. And Maria says that there's an old-fashioned candy shop 2 blocks from her house. Whoa. Could not live there. Whew. All right. And let's see here. Um, try up, Miss Kamala. If this knife was not purchased by BK, will DA check to see if family or friend ordered for him, or BK got in different name but sent to family or friends?
Oh, I'm sure they're going to look at any and all possibilities, because it could be that you know that it may have been a gift, or it could have been something he purchased himself, and but uh, through the financials and through the orders to addresses, and uh, uh, the way that they do these financials, because they will have done the financials on anyone and everyone that's located at these addresses. And but yes, that's a good point. That because Mrs. Steve and I, we often buy weapons for each other.
You're not supposed to tell that.
And, but so it's not uncommon for us to buy certain items, and so is that possible for him? Absolutely. But then you can also go to different types of gun shows and things and buy uh, these exact types of instruments.
Okay, and from Kevin S. Do you believe BK had knowledge of the layout of the house? It seems that he went straight for the 2 girls.
I do. I believe that in those that there was known times that he went to the residence prior to that. Absolutely, that he may have been doing it, gathering intelligence. It's something that we do in law enforcement, because whenever we are on stakeout and we're watching residences or otherwise, when you come home, tell that, if you're carrying groceries into we know that you've left a grocery store and you go in from your garage. Typically, it goes basically into the kitchen area, normally relatively quick, but we'll be able to see what lights are coming on. We'll be able to see when lights are come on in certain areas, and maybe you'll have TV screens, living rooms, and then once it gets bedtime, we'll be able to tell, when those lights come on in those areas, and be able to identify. There's a lot of things that can be gathered from individuals watching houses by types of windows, the venting for the plumbing system, that you can tell about residences. And but that's would he have known that? Would he have studied that? It's very possible. But even just sitting there and seeing that, if you're stalking someone and you watch them go into a dark house, and and you're able to see through double sliding doors, a kitchen area, and you see them go through it, and then they go upstairs and turn on lights, that we pretty well know that that's going to be bedrooms and things. And if they're the ones that only ones that at that specific time you see enter a house, you can deduce a lot of information by watching people go into a house, especially at night. Not so much in daytime, but when those late evening hours, you can tell a lot about individual movements within households.
All right, you ready for one off?
Sure.
From Ishi Garza. Hey, Steve, when are you going to have career? I think it would be interesting.
I don't know if I had that interesting a career. I had a pretty good career. But
boy, do I have some stories.
Yes.
Maybe Mrs. Steve needs to have story time.
Yeah. But yeah, I had a good career, and but yeah, we may look at that at some point. That'd be a good breaking the ice video.
All right, and nothing half-assed. I'm having a hard time saying that.
What a name!
I know. I have to make sure I go through that last one. Many officials have given profiles of the person they feel would have done these crimes and seem to have a reoccurring, very angry theme. Many think BK is meek and unlike the profiles. Thoughts?
Well, that's the thing, that when you're
dealing, meek.
No, when you're dealing with a psychopath, and if he is a psychopath, and there is that a possibility? I would say that anyone, if he is the one that committed these crimes, and he is the responsible party, and he's convicted of this, that most certainly for an individual to go in and be able to commit 4 homicides, 3 of them women, 1 man, and then go about your life, enter back into your school, your work, and with no remorse, that you could, when we look at BTK, Ted Bundy, even Rex Heuermann, who is new to the scene now, that if those individuals, no one recognized them for the monsters they were, not until after there were the arrests were made and connections were made, that everyone thought that they were certain type of personalities. So psychopaths can absolutely fool and trick society as a whole.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Gail.
Super sticker, $4 Canadian. Thank you, Gail. Appreciate that.
So we do appreciate that. All right, let's see here. I think you're done.
All righty, guys. Well, I appreciate it. And I don't know if Kristen behind the crime door has a show tonight or not. I may go over and see if she has. But we want to thank everyone for being here tonight. And we appreciate y'all's support. We appreciate the mods. We couldn't do this without y'all. Although not all the mods were here tonight, but we want to thank those also, because we couldn't do what we could do without it. The donations, the community. And like I said, I hate that I was gone for a few days, but the cold cases were something that we had to absolutely do. And I want to thank everyone involved in that, and some of them behind the scenes that names are not out there yet, but we'll address those in the future.
I got 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
And from Dandy, Mrs. Steve, who comes first, Mr. Steve or the grand Alts? Who do you think?
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think. I think when I asked her to marry me, I was way up here. And then baby Steve, I came on down. And then with the Alts, I'm way, I'm about soul level right now.
Come on, it ain't that bad.
I'm knee level then.
It ain't that bad. All right. And SP74, Steve, where would your experience tell you to look first for the discarded items along that route?
That is a great question.
We talked about that today too, didn't we not?
When that phone went off the air and the locations, and I've looked at that when he was leaving his residence and and he was still in Pullman, I looked at in the general area of where that occurred at, and you have a water treatment plant nearby that's isolated, um, where there's very little parking. There's a lot of trees. I think it's a cool water station, and I found that significant. And I also looked for car washes in the area. And there's a car wash within a half a mile of where he went off the air when his phone went dead. And the only significance of that is that when he returned and his phone came back on the air, he and cameras picked up his vehicle. He went back past that car wash. And does that mean that has anything to do with it? I don't know. But I do know that criminals have certain behaviors that he went off the air early on because he wants to disguise what was about to happen and what was going to, where was his pre-crime staging area. And we called a bank robber that did this exact thing, that he had a pre-crime staging area where he would go prep for the bank robberies. And after the robberies occurred, he would return to that exact area and reverse the process. Did Kohberger do that? It's possible. Absolutely is possible. So it'd be, I would look a lot along the Pullman area. That's just my guess, though. That's a good question. I like that question.
All right, we're done.
All righty.
Don't forget Cyclops.
Oh, yes. Cyclops. Mrs. Steve's been working on Cyclops.
I am halfway through a complete update. Halfway through.
Yeah. So even when Mrs. Steve is not my sidekick or the one that keeps everything flowing without, y'all see when I work by myself what it turns into, that she's behind the scenes working on the Cyclops and the database on the missing children and victims of homicides. And we absolutely appreciate everyone's work on that and what she does, what Mrs. Steve does to keep that updated as best as possible.
And Bama says, what is Cyclops?
It's a database that we decided that we wanted to create, whereas anyone that wishes to look in local cities or local areas about missing children, we have we narrowed it down to teenagers and younger of our victims. There's a lot of databases out there, whereas you have all the missing and exploited and different victims, but we wanted just something for children. So as we did research, that we could allow others to go in there and look at it and check their areas for missing persons and children, just as a public safety announcement. And also, so check it out. Just go to our website, truecrimeweb.com. It's on there. It has different regions of the United States with children that either unsolved homicides or missing in numerous, well, all across the United States.
Right. That's it.
All right. Well, we appreciate it, guys. And we thank y'all for being here, and y'all stay safe out there. Couldn't do it without y'all, and we'll see y'all soon.
Love y'all.